Right. Let's make sure that everything else is okay. And life exists yet again. Right. Did they rename this? Is this now EMS digital? Right. Should just read it EMS. Is this now EMS digital? Right. Should just read it EMS. Why am I hearing other people? EMS digital. Right. Read it EMS. Alright, let's turn the volume off. Sorry guys, had to turn it off. Cool. We already have other viewers. Yay! But now why is the Comcast weird? Because using the USB cable is not as fun. I mean the HDMI cable. We have like a gigabit connection too here, so that's the only reason why we can handle as many people as we do. Are you heading out or?
Yeah, I'm afraid of, since I'm so far behind, I have too many questions asked, so it's slowed by down. So.
Well, we do have help here to help you with getting everything
Send
set
it
up.
online though, right?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, I'll go
Alright.
do that and catch up.
All right.
Thanks a lot though, appreciate it.
Yeah, and be sure to sign up for the Slack because we can still continue to help you throughout going through the online.
Is that on those links for the?
So yeah, that form that I have listed at the top of the meetup.
Mhm.
Fill that out. You'll get into the Slack, and we'll get you on your like group stuff.
That's all right. We'll be in the
Right.
slacker. Thanks.
We're all slackers at heart sometimes, everybody.
Some days more than others.
Some years more than others, man.
Yeah, I hear that.
Like helping my intern. Right, let's see. Pick it up. Look, it picked up something. Looked like it did for a second.
Someone was connecting to Google with Kazaa, so the firewall caught it. So don't use Kazaa, because if you are, you're like 40 or something.
Yeah.
And whoa, I forgot how spotty this HDMI cable was. I apologize. This HDMI cable has been through some things. Seen a lot of wars.
I'm not sure.
Alright, let's see about closing some of these. And we'll do a move on that.
Interesting if you hold it.
Maybe fall alongside. Range of
Yeah, really.
Oh, yeah.
You can kind of imagine what I usually have. I have a couple of like.
Oh, a real computer.
Alright, let's see about getting to the bottom. Come on. Load. Let's see. There we go.
Let's go back to our app now and add a checkbox.
Alright. Are we fooded? People ready?
So, is this something,
Yes, that is something that you can go back and revisit. But we go through the video, then we talk about some of the various concepts and go in a little bit deeper most of the time and then work through things as a group. I am going to grab a bag of so they're all the way over here. All right.
There wasn't many, no?
All right. Well, congratulations, everybody. Welcome to the final session of the class for the regular coursework. So what we are going to do next is actually our final app presentations. Now, originally we had this scheduled for the 9th, which is next Tuesday, but that only gives you a week to complete your app. How many of you feel like you're equipped to do your application? Raise some hands. In a week. So, given that, how many of you guys would want to do this and have it be either later next week or on a different, like, not this coming Monday, but the next Monday afterward?
The longer
Like-
the better for me. Like,
The longer the better? Hey, there's a joke there. So basically, the 16th through the 18th, I am not here. So we can't do the 16th through the 18th. We can pick basically any other day. So that means that we have everything from the 9th through probably the 19th or even the 22nd.
Okay.
What is a good like day of the week for everybody? And what would be good days for final app presentations, voting, and prizes? Prizes being a very important word. Huh?
What about the 15th?
We can do the 15th. That gives you a week
6 days.
and 6 days.
Yeah, why not the 23rd?
We can do the 23rd. Give you guys 3 weeks. Do you think you're gonna be like super on top of this in 3 weeks? Am I gonna have to send messages to find out who your parents are on Facebook, send them messages like, he's not doing his classwork again? So, okay,
Hey, honey.
yell out some dates. So we heard the 23rd and the 15th thus far. All right, does anybody else want any other dates? Nobody? Nobody?
What?
15th or the 23rd for final app presentations, voting, and prizes.
23rd.
Okay.
Well, I
Okay.
mean,
All right.
hey, I have to
Raise
tell
your
you
hand for 15.
Okay.
See, I was right.
23rd it is. Okay, everybody wants
should be able to
23rd. And we will have a survey that will go out like the day of the presentations. Don't complete them until you've seen what people have made. We'll have things for like most improved, best user experience, best UI, most useful, that kind of thing. So there'll be probably like 5 or 6 different categories. Yes, sir.
So, mine is using a GPS, which one we're not gonna get here, and 2 relies on motion, so can I just, capture some video from it to display, or how do we wanna work that?
So what you can use is, does the phone that you have happen to be Android 4.4.4 or higher?
I think I am right at KitKat 4.4, I think.
Yeah, okay, so perfect. That means that you have what's called the screen record capability. So you can do ADB shell screen record and actually record video directly from the screen of your phone. I use it all the time. It's how I prove to the QA testers that in fact, no, this isn't a defect. And also how I make QA guys write defects. Like if it's no video, no pictures, didn't happen. So
All right.
that's also a good way to like structure things. Like if you can see a video of it, then you know, like video and pictures, you know how to make it happen, right?
Yeah,
so-
so just capture it, then I can play it here that day. Or
Yeah, you can play it through. And also, your presentations, no longer than 10 minutes. What does that mean? No more than 7 slides. You give me a lecture, you're gonna make it very difficult. Other people are gonna be like, oh, we got so many people to go
Make
through.
a PowerPoint and an Android.
If
You don't
your
have to,
present,
that's just the limit.
that's a limit. That's a limit. Like if you want to show us just your app and have it actually go through and record through the screen, that's great. Now, the other thing that you can do is give me an APK, and I will have it loaded on a device that will be able to be shown on the screen and projected up to here. So I also strongly suggest that, especially because we do have a Chromecast in this room. So that means that we can Chromecast from the screen on the device to the screen up here, so you can display it that way. But this is why I say, like, APK, images, video, link URL in the thing that I just sent you guys today. And yeah, I really can't wait to see what y'all come up with. And like, extra super bonus points for people who A, post their stuff up on GitHub or Bitbucket, just not privately, right? Publicly post your code, you get an entry to the magical mystery tour. Awesome. And then if you do, if you upload it to Google Play, you get a guaranteed like super prize. So I have like these super prizes. So one is an entry to the super prize, but if you upload it to Google Play and successfully get it up on the App Store, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not fantastic, the important thing is that you have the exposure to how it actually means to make an app, be able to be okay with other people seeing your code, even though it's not, you know, it's not beautiful. We know you guys are beginners. And then also so that when we talk about having it distributed on Play Store, so that you guys have the experience before we finish the class of what it means to actually deploy an application or code. You could make up a name and call it Mr. Funbags, and that could be a Google Play account that you make. But I really like the idea that, you know, even if it's not successful, that you guys try, go through the process, and can ask any questions while we're actually going through this course. Because deployed a bunch of apps deployed a bunch of apps to Google Play. So I can answer a lot of questions you might have about some of the developer console and other information. Are we ready to get started? Yes, ma'am.
Are we still meeting next week or no?
We're gonna postpone that until the 23rd.
Okay, so
that is
not added.
No, yeah, and you know, feel free on Slack to ask like me and some of the other mentors, like just, hey, I need to be able to make a database. What's an instruction for how to do that in Android? I need to be able to do this. What's some information on that? Because I have many honed years of developer Android Googling experience. I can probably find it just as well as you can, but I might be able to help you a little bit along the way, especially if you're running into trouble with the tutorial. So, we cool? Oh, somebody had a thing. All right. Cool. Let's get started. Great. It's full screen. And hopefully she will play for us.
This will allow the user to select if they want the whipped cream topping on their coffee. It'll look something like this, and then you can check this box. Go ahead and add a checkbox to the app now. This will allow the user to add a whipped cream topping on their drink if they want. When you click on this checkbox, it should automatically animate to this state. Also add a header that says toppings. There's only one topping now, but we're going to add another one later. If you click on the order button, the order summary shows, and it's still the same as before. Eventually, we're going to modify it so it shows whether you have the whipped cream topping or not. For this next coding task, just focus on adding this checkbox and this header. You haven't added a checkbox to the layout before, but here's your chance to learn. You can look up online how to do this, or you can check out the Common Android Views cheat sheet, which is linked in the instructor notes. Whichever way you decide to figure it out, when your app launches, it should look something like this. Also note that I would like 24 dp of space in between the box and cream. Also use a font size of 16 sp for the whipped cream text. By the way, when I draw out specific metrics like for spacing or font sizes or font colors, that's actually called red lines. Red lines are very detailed specifications about how the visual appearance of the app should look like. If you're a developer working with a designer, you'll probably get a set of red lines for different screens in your app so that you can build according to these specs. The red lines may include values for colors, size of views, spacing, font sizes, and font colors. These are the red lines for the Sunshine app in the Developing Android Apps Udacity course. Keeping this in mind, go ahead and start planning how you're going to build out this layout. Remember the 3 steps that we taught you in Lesson 1 for building any layout. First, select the views that you need, then position them, and then style them. In the text boxes provided, write down what you need to do in each step. Once you've planned it out, then go ahead and add this to your app. Ironically, I don't have a checkbox for you to check when you're done with this task.
All right, let's do it. So I'm gonna give you guys this cheat sheet, which is basically like ready to go code. Come on. Copy the address. So here, checkbox is just another view type. And what's really cool is now we have, like by default, when you enter this, it's an already animated view type, which is really, if you come from my world, you used to have to like set, like whether or not it was checked based off a text event, like way back when. And it used to not animate. You had to write your own animations. It was rough. And now you have the material design library, which makes everything beautiful and animated and all this stuff for you. So, yay! You guys can make beautiful apps like super easy, which is awesome. All right, so let's add those things. And I want to see what it looks like. You guys gotta do it according to the 24 dp spacing between the checkbox and the text. So you can put a label on the checkbox, you put a spacer, or you can put a text view next to the checkbox. Using which kind of layout view groups? What kind of layouts can you use to do this? To contain those 2 things. So you can do a linear layout where you put those as horizontal, or you can do a relative layout where you assign things to top, left, and right of the parent.
What are you guys using? This is the first time here.
Okay, so what we're actually going through, did you fill out the form that was on the top of the meetup?
I just saw it yesterday, last night.
Okay, so why don't you go to the top of that layout, that meetup? Yeah, so go to DMS member. The Wi-Fi. DMS member. Okay. The password is DMS, all lowercase, -- 109 238. All right, hit next. And then go to the meetup, go to the form. All right, so how's everybody doing on that progress with the checkbox, adding the text, the top layouts? Does anybody need help? You got it, sir.
Wait, I don't know the spacing between the text box.
So what you can do, did you add it as a label for the checkbox? Or did you put a text view next to it? So that's only one view, what that's looking a lot like.
Oh,
Yeah. So you're gonna want to put it. You're gonna want to make a separate text view just for whipped cream, and leave that checkbox without a label, but do put an ID on it. What do we always? When in doubt, always put an ID on it. Even if you're not using it right now, somebody will eventually. It's always a pain in the butt to have to go back and like add IDs. Because somebody put a view spacer, didn't put an ID on it. You need it to now like dynamically do stuff, so you have to add it to all the different layouts that it applies to. It's like, or you can find a frame layout, just jump it in there. But that's a different time. Now, also, like I was gone at this thing this past week, this conference, all those videos are gonna be online. And a lot of them you guys would really get a kick out of, like custom views. So I can tell you that when you're a professional in this business, you do a lot of what is called a custom view. So basically we've taken like the code that we've defined in some of these pieces right here, like what we have thus far, you can take that whole thing and define it as a custom view instead of an activity with like the view assigned to it. So you can make that one thing that you could inject into something else. So if you wanted to make coffee ordering in like 10 places in your app, you would only have to define it once, and you can smash it into other spots. So there's a really good presentation that was given by Glenn Diego, although call her Huey. Yeah, sorry.
What was the conference name?
360 AmDev, and you can go to their Twitter. I think my talk will be on there soon. They're posting them as they finish editing them. Mine was on threading, basically how to do it right, and the stuff that you need to know that is like Android specific. So like some of you have looked at like, oh, well, I want to load images from an external site, or I want to have a login, right? Like we don't want logins to be part of what we put on this main page other than to put like the text that we put in, right? We want to have that run in a different process, because if we run it in this one, it ends up stalling our app. You ever seen an app that just stalls, try and move up and down because you hit like send and nothing happens? It's usually because they didn't use what's called threading. So we'll have the videos for that as well. And that's geared towards total beginners as well, and goes up through some more advanced concepts, but it will be something that you guys can jump into and understand. All right, are we checkboxed? All right, check it out. All right. We're gonna just put, how would I put random?
Do you know where we define, let's say, if you want to define all, but like you show a style sheets, right?
So if you wanted to make a style theme, there is this thing called app compat theming. So app compat is what, when we made the base of our application, when we first started the base of our application, we started it as an app compat activity. So you might see some older examples that use just activity, but app compat is basically what gives us a lot of the, and they say full, but they lie, all of that theming and all of these elements that we're putting in here, and make it work on devices as low as API 14 for the most part, 15 guaranteed. So that would be like Android 4.0, right? So that gives you like everybody's phone from the last 6 years, which is a yay. Yeah, and that's a whole other bag of crazy.
But I'm sure the generalization of it
Yes. So like I would define something, make an app compat theme, like a base theme for the application, and then themes for different elements. And that would be something that would be reused, either automatically picked up from the like app theme that I define, or I could just say, oh, the theme of this button is this, so I don't have to put in that the text color is this size, the padding is this size, the text size is this much, the width and things like that. I can define it in a single element that can get reused, which is also really convenient because you can have stuff where like they decide to change the entire color palette, and instead of me having to go back to each and every page and change how they wanted all of those kinds of buttons to look and work, I can change it in one spot, define it in one theme, and then I don't have to do it again. It sucks for QA, but it's great from a development
That
standpoint.
goes in styles.xml.
What?
That goes in styles.xml.
So styles and themes are two different things. Styles kind of picks up everything. So if you want something that's just going to be used for one element or one page or potentially a few pages, you're going to want to put it in themes. Because styles kind of gets picked up by everybody, but themes you like define it and it's good.
So you can define a theme by as a customer base. Like for example, you are an old customer, you are a single customer.
No, you can define it by the name of the element. If you wanted to have it pick a theme, pick a gold theme that you named it that has a whole bunch of elements in it already, and then you would have to like set app theme, and then pick that theme out of your themes list. But that's totally possible to do. I've had that happen a few times where like so let's look at something that's like kind of related to what I do. Like we have regular customers and we have pro customers. Maybe we want to have pro customers have an all red app that indicates that they are pros, or has red highlights instead of orange highlights because they're pros. They get red. Red means business. And not that that's happening by any stretch, but if we wanted to, we could totally do it. So, all right, we cool?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
For the final and demos, for the what features it does, you put like radio buttons and
You can put things in other. You can write your own answers. I'm just throwing out elements that you could have possibly used so that I can kind of correlate those to see what was the most popular things, concepts that people went out and did. You could put stuff in other as well. That's why there's an other category. All right, Julio. Hopefully it will accept it. You know what? I'm gonna skip you. Thank you. Woo-hoo.
If I check this box in the app, then it'll add the whipped cream topping to our coffee.
That'll make the coffee more delicious.
Yeah.
Perhaps more expensive.
True. Eventually, we're going to have to learn how to create an order summary and then send it off.
Oh, so when we send the order summary, that's when we get the coffee, right?
Yeah.
That's good.
But the problem is we don't exactly know if the box is checked or not.
You just check the box. I know you check the box.
Well, it's easy for a human to see, but it's hard for the phone to see.
Who are you calling human?
Anyways, when you add the checkbox to your app, then it's actually creating a Java object, like this.
How many of these boxes are out there?
Many. Because in fact, inside the checkbox object, we have a variable,
Okay.
a Boolean variable.
Boolean. I haven't heard that word before.
Well, a Boolean just means that there's two states here.
Like New York and California?
No, it's more like a light switch.
How do you do? Anyways, so you're saying when we created a checkbox, we had a Java object. Inside of that, we have a variable of type Boolean,
Right.
and the type of that variable is either on or off.
The value of it is, yeah, on or off.
Okay, so I can turn the value from on to off.
I can't see anything. Can you turn it back on? We're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so a Boolean can have two states, true or false, and that represents the checked state of this checkbox.
Oh, that's a lot of checks in that statement. Let's just back up. I'm going to summarize. Tell me if I got this wrong.
Okay.
So when we created the checkbox, we created this Java object. Inside of that Java object, we have a variable. Its type happens to be Boolean,
Yes.
and that type of variable can hold two values, either on or off, 1 or 0, true or false.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's play with the Boolean.
Okay, it's time to take that away from you. Let's look at what the documentation says about Booleans. I'm going to Google search for Java data type. That's because Boolean is one of the primitive data types in Java. Primitive meaning basic data types. I'm going to scroll through this list of primitive data types until I find Boolean. Here it is. It says the Boolean data type only has two possible values, true and false. It's used for simple flags that track true and false conditions. Then it says that a Boolean takes up one bit of information. This is about how much space it takes up on a computer. computer. Anyways, the important part is that a Boolean has two possible values. You might think that true and false are actually string values because they're text, but actually they're not in double quotations, so they're not strings. They're actually fixed literal values. Do you remember how fixed literal values are like 0 and 1, or specific strings like hello or today? That means that when you create a Boolean variable, you can set it to one of these two values. Going back to our box analogy, if we have a variable called isChecked and it stores information on whether a checkbox is checked or not, then inside this Boolean variable, we can store the value true. Then we can interpret this as the checkbox being checked. Or we can store the value false inside this variable. Then we could interpret this as the checkbox not being checked. A Boolean is great for having two possible states. Then it's up to you as a developer to interpret what true and false maps to. If you need more than two possible states, then you can't use a Boolean. You need to use something else like a string or an integer. Declaring a Boolean variable is very similar to declaring an int. It's not as complicated as creating an object variable. It follows the format of Boolean has whipped cream equals true. We have the data type, which is Boolean, followed by the variable name, which can be anything we want, and then the initial value, which is true or false. Here are a couple of other examples. This is where I set the same Boolean to be false. And here's a different Boolean called isRegistered, and I just initialize that to false. For example, this variable could represent whether a user using our app actually has a registered account with us. Here's another example. Boolean is order for pickup equals true. This variable could represent whether someone putting in an order for some coffee wants to pick it up at the store or have it delivered. While our app doesn't support these features, you can imagine how using Booleans could be useful because these things have two possible states. Also notice the way I named these variables. A Boolean variable name has to follow the same conventions as other variable names. However, it's common to start with something like has something or is something. When you see names with has or is, it's likely a Boolean, but not always. What I'm about to show you is a little more advanced and optional, so if you're interested, you can follow along. This is the documentation page for the checkbox class. I'm going to click on View Source to look at the source code for the checkbox class. This code is saved in the checkbox.java file. I want to show you that there's a Boolean variable inside of this checkbox class, but I don't see it here. So let's check the superclass. If this value is true, then the checkbox is checked. If it's false, then the box is not checked. You'll notice that this name doesn't contain the word has or is, but if you go down here, you'll see that the other Boolean variables do have the word has in it. It's all a matter of preference for the developer. In this case, it's probably pretty clear that this is a Boolean for the checked state. And while this Boolean is not found directly in the checkbox.java file, since we're inheriting from the compound button class, we get this checked Boolean for free. In general, looking at the source code for the Android classes isn't required at all. To develop Android apps, all you need to know is how to look at the documentation pages. Okay, so in this video, we learned about how Booleans can store a value of true or false. In this quiz, practice creating a Boolean variable and updating it by typing out the lines of code in the boxes provided. Type this line exactly in here, and same for the other boxes. Then I want you to think about other good use cases for storing information in a Boolean. Think about what has two possible states. Do you ever use the alarm clock on your phone to wake up? Well, chances are that when you turn your alarm on or off, that's actually getting stored as a Boolean variable. Another possible Boolean variable is whether you want to repeat an alarm or not. In the Gmail app, if I really want to star this special message that I got from the Gmail team in 2011, then I can star it. Or I can unstar it. Since this has two states, it could be stored as a Boolean variable. A possible Boolean variable name for that could be isStarred. You could also use a Boolean variable to keep track of whether an email is read or not. This email is unread, whereas this email is already read. Speaking of YouTube, let's go to the YouTube app. In the YouTube app, when it displays a list of videos, if I've already watched it, then it shows this little text box here that says watched in the top left corner of the thumbnail image. The fact that I've watched or not watched a video could also be stored as a Boolean variable. I just showed you some use cases for Booleans, so try to come up with your own here. You can browse existing Android apps for some ideas.
can type this. Or, what would be another thing that we could have? What are you looking for?
Fire inspection, smart fire.
We have a lot of cords.
Is there power plugs over there on the wall?
There are not power plugs, but there are AV plugs.
So you bitches got shit like this, and this is extension cable and 2 circuit protector, which is then daisy chained into another circuit protector. So I'll just have to come in here.
I can unplug this circuit protector because I plugged it into my laptop. But single extension cable to a protector.
Yes. You bitches that dumb shit. Technically, it's against electrical code.
Well, do you mind if we address this after
No,
that was our
of course.
class? All right, thank you very much. Sorry about that interruption, guys. All right, so what would be some other use cases for storing information in a Boolean? Somebody raise the hand. Bill.
Member, not a member?
Members versus non-members, right? So maybe you have like some kind of specialty pricing for people who are part of your coffee club.
I've used it to store gender.
Ah, gender could be one, right? So, not that we want to store gender in this.
Oh, the coffee app.
Maybe not. Well, this is lady coffee, so we're gonna come color it pink. That doesn't.
No, I was in this app specifically. I was thinking in real life.
In real life, yeah. So that's something that, but yeah, that's more. I'm just giving you a hard time. What's up, Shobit?
Maybe say if the user is signed up or not.
I think we covered registered. So let's think of something else that you might want to. What might be something else that you could store in a Boolean that might be useful?
Has ordered before or has not received.
Are they a repeat customer, right? So repeat customer. Right.
Oh, decaf.
Ah, decaf. That's a good one.
Sugar, no sugar?
So do they want cream? Do they want sugar? Those can both be different Booleans, right? Cream, sugar. What might be something else?
Hot or cold?
Do they want it iced? Iced or hot, right? So that's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with your coffee. We already covered like whipped cream. Do they want a dash of cinnamon or not? Or do they want like a pump of a flavor? Then you can define the flavor. Or how, that kind of stuff. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and skip because I don't really feel like typing that in here.
Now that we know that we can use a Boolean to represent the check state of this checkbox, let's modify the order summary so that it reflects whether or not we want the whipped cream topping. If I say that I want the whipped cream topping and then I click on the order button, then it should add a line to the order summary that says whether or not I want that topping. It says true if I check the box to add the topping, and if I uncheck the box, then click on order, then it should say false. Android already handles checking this box, and we already have code in our app to handle clicking on the order button to create an initial order summary. The part that's left for us to implement is adding this line of text here that says add whipped cream, and we need to put in the right value based on whether this box is checked or not. Before we start diving into the code, let's think about the pseudocode first to help solidify the main ideas of what we want our code to do. When the order button is clicked, we should do these steps. The first step is to get the checked state from checkbox and then store it in a variable. So that's this checked state. Once the Android device knows if this is checked or not, then we can pass this information into the order summary method, the method that creates this text. As the third step, we can change this text to include this line here about whether the whipped cream topping should be added or not. There are a couple of steps along the way. To make sure that you're on the right path, you can actually log this variable value here to make sure that it reflects the actual checked state. We introduced logging earlier, but here's another example for you. You can write log.v and then use the class name, which is main activity, comma, and then put in a string message that you want to print out to the logs. By printing out the price here, we're verifying that after step 1, the calculate price method does return the expected price. When you run the app on your device, you should be able to check the logs using this tab to see this message. I use the technique of logging messages often when there's a problem and I'm not sure which line of code has the problem. And then after I figure out the problem and everything works as expected, then I just delete the log message. So temporarily, if you want to add a log message to print out the checked state, you can. The reason why I delete log messages after I don't need them anymore is because the log is a limited length. If you fill it with a bunch of unnecessary messages, then it will cause the important messages and errors to disappear sooner. Once the checked state information is showing up in the order summary on the device, then you really don't need the log messages anymore. When you're done, check this box to continue.
Right. Be able to actually check and see what's going on. Add whipped cream. So you should be added to the Slack channel or have an invite.
Well, I found the tutorial, so
Okay.
I'll catch up on that.
Okay, cool. And yes, you should have the Slack invite your Gmail if you filled out the form. Somebody gave me a email. It was like J something. So, how y'all doing? You doing good? Viewers? Okay. Let's start adding that we do things with the checkbox and tell whether or not we need to add whipped cream. At this point, we have coffees that are black coffees with potentially whipped cream. Which whipped cream is adding both sugar and cream at once, so. Oh, hey, good. You want to go for extra bonus points for the names? Because it's your thing. You can use something called text overlay. It will animate your, you put it around your other text, and it'll make it so it's this little hint. It turns into the label and animates back and forth. No? Yeah, so look at text input layout. I don't think we have enough. Yes, text input layout. Something that's at top at this, at top at specific. And then you can do stuff with like setting errors and all that. Animates beautifully. Yeah, just this. Yeah. Stacy. Yes. All right, show me. Show me. Show me your things. Show me your things. Ooh, okay, do it. Do it. Ah. No, it's got it. We need help. Anybody need help?
There's just one bug in this Java app that they didn't tell us at the beginning. So if you like order like 30 coffees or something, and then it's back to zero, and then you put one, it's a $35. So if you order twice,
Well, there's. Because you haven't unset the elements until they change.
That's right. After at least that button.
Yeah. So every time that you like want to recalculate it, you set that value back to zero before you can. But there's stuff that we're going to get into, guys. Promise. All right. So how's everybody doing on that checkbox?
yeah, let me say that.
Everybody got it or don't got it?
My dad was
Got it, don't got it. Got it, don't got it.
he has a test.
So what are they building?
So what we're actually doing here is building an application that orders coffees and gives you different options.
What's building the software?
Android Studio. So you might want to go ahead and download that, and let's make sure that at least you have that set up before you leave today, because you can run into issues, and we want to make sure that you have the emulators correctly working and all that jazz. Right. We got like 4 or 5 people on streams. I'm so proud of y'all for making it this far. I know it's a lot of work to commit, like every week showing up. And then we have probably about 70 or 80 people who watch the videos over the course of the week. So, like, ironically, there's a person from Israel who's decided to join our class. And then another person from Uganda.
What? Seriously?
No joke.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Guys in Israel.
That's Jordan.
Probably not a beginning class, but yeah, and some of them have done like the forum and everything else like that. Right now, as of like this moment, we have like 87 people, 88 people that have like not just signed up for the class, but like completed the forums and stuff like that. So that's a good solid number. All right. Who doesn't have a checkbox next to the names? All right. Are we ready? Are we ready?
Nope.
All right. Somebody answer. Who's awesome? You're awesome. All right.
The pseudocode starts with when the order button is clicked. This indicates that we should add our code in this final
We're
time.
gonna skip this.
Okay, great work. Let's move on to the next task. If you start to add too many things to the order form, then the content can get cut off at the bottom. Like this could get pushed off the screen and then you wouldn't be able to see it. A vertical linear layout doesn't scroll if it extends beyond the edge of the screen. You need to add something specific in your app to make it vertically scrollable. This is a silly example, but I basically copied the views that we have in our layout and then pasted it right after each other. And you can see that even though there's more content beyond the edge of the screen, it still doesn't scroll. This is especially a common problem when you switch your phone to landscape mode and the screen is shorter compared to in portrait mode. That's where it'd be really convenient if this could scroll. And now I'll leave it to you to figure out how to do this. When you're done, you can describe how you did it here. You can write it with your feather quill or just use your keyboard.
Ooh. So, has anybody looked ahead to what kind of layout might allow us to actually scroll?
Scroll view. I wouldn't put it in.
We both win. Scroll view. So one thing that we can do is we can declare our linear layout either contained within a scroll view or as a scroll view. So why don't you try that now and copy and paste some of the existing code that you have into itself and see if it allows you to go back and forth. And if you start typing like X, C, it kind of pops up, which is nice. There's a form at the very top, the description of the meetup. And that adds you to the Slack channel, which gives you access to all of our online resources, all of the coursework and videos that we've already done. So if you wanted to catch up with later, all the coursework are on your video streams also. So once you get access to the Slack channel, talk to them, trouble with this. The best thing to do, fill out form. So the meetup website, very first thing, I think it says required form in all caps with two asterisks next to it. Right underneath that is the form for this class. Cool.
Stacy?
Yes, sir.
Also, there's something that you should point out, the fact that if you want to use a design and you have a scroll view, there's something called the viewport, which you have to set to true OS and then you set that up.
Yeah. This is part of the exploration. All right, let's see if we can get stuff scrolling. Let's see it on your virtual device or your actual device. Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Keep those apps scrolling, 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 scrolling. Okay. It's a good show. What? That's a good show. That's why you have to copy paste the code a bunch of times. Make sure it scrolls. And you can do scroll views inside of scroll views inside of scroll views. And you can end up with all these little elements that you want to. Show me that scrolling. Yeah. Somebody show me that scrolling. Yeah. Control C and C. Did you fill out the form?
Yeah, so where do I just go?
Go to, just look up Android Studio.
Guys, other than this one, what else can I do? This is Slack. You can see the like homepage.
No, what you got is an invite, and it'll take you to a thing to make a, username and all that jazz. And you can install it as an app on your phone, or you can just use it through the web portal. So it's going to be in your, so Android Studio, developer.android. Don't do this one. Don't die on me.
Studio 2.
Yep. It'll take a little bit. But I would say log in to the Slack channel, create your profile, and then send me a message. I can make sure to point you in the right direction. The links are all linear. If you look at the conversations in the general channel, as we go through everything. Yes, sir. Text, if, well, so the thing is that you can define this. Where do you have a check to define? Sounds good. Check. So the thing is you can really simplify this and just say, you don't need to put an if-else statement here. You can just say stream dot is checked, right? And you can put on the other side is checked. And then you can say, is this the only place you're using the checked? So what you could do is actually, instead of this, you could actually use an abstractor again and just do cream stud is checked. How would it not work? Well, one thing, remember when I talked about this earlier? It's always a good idea to take that checkbox and any other UI elements and initialize them all in one spot. Because every time you're checking this, and nothing else is checking this, it's never used. What do you need to know about these checks? What else do you need?
No, I did. I added a button.
So this checkbox should probably, where's the yeah, something now.
It seems my screen is full over there.
It is if you haven't declared to use.
So my image is very dark.
So it is really
A lot of things are actually the same.
Yeah.
All space or dummy space.
Yeah, should be.
Yeah, that should be working. Because this should work. User where you have green. Okay, that's right. Should work, but the more important thing is you have to find this here. See this? Yeah, find it at the top. Because also, like, I'm assuming find by ID, but I can also have like a view. So, like where we have this display. Right now you're keeping everything centralized to these individual things. Yeah, this also would be. Now remember, if you're testing on BlueStacks is weird. BlueStacks doesn't fix everything up. This is why I recommend not using BlueStacks and using one of the actual ones.
Oh, yeah.
And remember, you can also use
I can check millions of check the box.
That'll probably help you out. Alright,
It works.
show me scrolls. Scrolls, yay! With the action bar top thing.
Yeah, this
Not the actual action yet.
This action thing is actually pretty complicated. I like to fix this kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you have to support really old devices, you have to create it from scratch. Everything can be created in Android with Android. All right, cool. So everybody got the scroll view going? Yes. Scroll view. With viewport, right? And that has to do with basically that little action bar that we have at the top already, so that it doesn't like over scroll that. Why does it say?
You misspelled scroll.
Oh. Scroll view. Good. Oh, just was looking for that word.
Let's Google search for how to do this. I'm going to type in how to make this was someone's original layout, and then to put it inside a scroll view, then they just made scroll view be the parent view and the linear layout be the child view. Okay, that was a helpful response. So let's go back and see if there's any other solutions.
All right, I'm gonna skip so that we save
They'll
5
still be
minutes.
able to scroll and see all the fields.
Any other questions? Yes. Add the chocolate. So here we're going to add another. Okay. Here we're going to add another checkbox, doing the same type of thing that we did with whipped cream, but now we're going to do it with chocolate. Ooh, everything's better with chocolate. So what's actually really nice here is that you can copy and paste almost all of the code that you actually use for whipped cream and just rename it chocolate. Yay! Do they want chocolate with their black coffee with whipped cream?
It's chocolate.
Oh, we've.
And somebody would create for like steam one day and then. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I'm gonna let y'all in a little secret. I got rejected from Starbucks when I applied.
You only had that.
It's not such
Yeah,
a
good
secret,
memory.
but yeah. I got rejected. I am not fit for barista. I barista don't.
Northwestern is better than Starbucks.
Yeah, but you know what Starbucks does? Pay you money. You know what Northwestern does? Cost you money. It's a little. I had a scholarship, but yeah. I exited with basically cost of living expenses, so I had like about 27,000 total.
That's really good. Yeah.
Scholarships, y'all. If you, and I'm not saying that that's how much money I had in the beginning in terms of scholarships, but I just like hit those, like the treasury and the student like applications and all that stuff. Like hardcore. Like I'll take your $250 scholarship, $500 scholarships. A lot of times I was already doing volunteer and other activities, so I have to count for like 5 different scholarships one time. They were all like $50 to $150, but I don't know about you, but I don't remember making $500 an hour in college ever. So since these days.
My nephew's doing it, Baylor. He sets aside an hour every week and searches for new scholarships at, and he has a scholarship to Baylor, but Baylor is only partial. So that's what he told his parents he was doing to help out, and he's accumulating quite a bit of money. So a lot of them, they're like $250, $500.
Oh yeah, a ton of them are.
It adds up.
It totally adds up. I totally agree. Although, given the current state of like loans and federal loans and stuff like that, a lot of the top universities are becoming like no loan universities. So actually, this past year, mine became any financial demonstrated need is going to be taken care of with those loans, so that. Whatever the family just, like normally they would offset it with federal loans. That money is now being given to you as a student.
But Stacey, like, can we actually add a text with the checkbook? Because, I mean, when you have.
You're looking at adding a label, and we're trying to make it exactly the same. How would you feel if it was offset and janky and didn't have that nice little gap between it, and you saw an app and be like, oh, gross.
Yeah, but like.
No.
I was like trying to tell the designers that those 16 pixels are not important, but it's not a conversation.
No, it's not. So don't.
It's like you can get a reputation.
I can tell you, it's very important to know how to write code that makes drop shadows. Because, oh, I want more drop shadow here, I want less drop shadow here. Yes, sir. I don't know what world your app is running in, but is checked. Like, is the only thing.
Like, are you still on the,
His thing is not picking, he says his stuff's not picking up whether or not it's checked.
Did you cast it as a checkbox?
Yeah.
Assuming that the standards.
Yeah, standard install. You need to, do you have the GDK?
It's already false.
Well, you'll find out. You'll find out when you try to run it.
it's
It's false in here.
even this week, it's defined if then we just remove the fact
It's
that
having trouble with
what
the
check
clips.
equals. Check the-
Yeah.
Because I have a J3E version and I downloaded the
So
Android
if this is checked, it makes it
version.
true.
No
It
need to
wasn't-
use Eclipse here.
Well, anyway, my problem was wherever it was putting
It's the same thing, but mine's.
the virtual phones
Oh, emulator.
wasn't matching where the Android stuff was.
Oh, interesting. So what's nice is we can do this all in one place, in the Android Studio, is the Android specific ID. So it's got all of the links and all of the plugins and all of the happiness all in one place.
What?
Yeah, but
Okay.
it finds us up there and says, well,
So we copy and pasted the whipped cream. Are we able to make whipped cream appear as yes or no, or true or false?
Even chocolate.
I put it around the whole time.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
one time
quiz.
was in your layout. So
Oh, you did the whole lot.
everything, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I could get that in. But I just.
The whole thing, yeah.
Good question.
Files. We're gonna have our display text, right? Our display text. And what's the other one? What other files are we gonna change? Well, what file? Sorry. We're gonna have two places. We're gonna have our, what's the name of the main activity? It's just main activity, right? Activity.java, and then our activity underscore main .xml. Alright, we're gonna submit yes, but it's probably gonna tell us no. Oh wait, it did, yay! Woo, okay. That's just telling us what we just did. Cool. Next.
We've come a long way in this course.
Yeah,
Some of our students may be feeling ecstatic that they've built these couple of apps,
yeah.
although some of them may be feeling a little bit pensive because they realize that there is a lot to learn.
There is, and I can empathize with that feeling. When I first started at Google, I felt out of place. I didn't know why they hired me. I just felt like an imposter.
Like imposter syndrome?
Exactly. But then I realized that other people also feel the same thing, and that made me feel more at ease.
Thanks for sharing. Let's do the same thing for our students next.
Okay.
Here are some Googlers sharing their stories of feeling out of place.
Do we want to do this, or do we want to skip this?
Skip it.
Invariably,
Wait, is there, yeah. Yeah, we're doing this. Conditional code? Yeah.
So the next thing to do in our app is to change the price of the coffee in case someone orders a topping like whipped cream or chocolate.
Okay, that's a good idea. So if they order whipped cream, then we'll just charge them $1.
Mhm.
If they order chocolate, then we'll charge them $2.
Right. Let's figure out how to do this in the app.
Here are a couple of examples in other Google apps where the behavior can change based on certain conditions. In the Inbox app from Gmail, here's a screenshot of the list of emails. For a single email, if there's a reminder attached to it, then the app knows to show this icon, this label, and the reminder text. If an email has image attachments, then the app knows to show those images in line here. If an email mentions a trip, then a travel card shows up with the flight information. In the Google Now Launcher app, we have more examples of how the app behavior changes based on certain conditions. For example, if the stock price is increasing, then the delta or the increase in the price will be shown here in green font color. If the stock price is decreasing, then the difference will be shown here in a red font color. For this weather card, if the temperature is good and the weather is sunny, then we show a sun icon. If the weather is windy or cloudy, then we show different icons. We'll be modifying our app shortly so that the price changes based on the toppings ordered. But first, I want you to become familiar with control flow. Normally, the code in our methods gets executed from top to bottom, line after line. But with control flow statements, you can change the order that instructions are executed in. For example, you can skip certain instructions if certain conditions are met. We're going to do this by learning about if-else logic. You haven't seen code for if-else statements before, but I'm going to throw you in the deep end and see how you do. In the next couple of challenges, you're going to read some code snippets on your own, and these are linked in the instructor notes. Then you're going to try to guess what this code does and try to determine the output. You'll have several options to choose from, so you can pick the best one that matches this code. When I say output, I'm referring to the log statements that get printed to the logcat. Remember that you can access logcat from this Android tab right here, and it shows all the messages from the system and from our apps. The code snippets that we're providing to you are going to be writing messages to the log here. Let's do a sample question together. You can find this link in the instructor notes. Assume that this is a code snippet from a weatheractivity.java file within a weather app. The first line of code creates a Boolean variable called isRaining, and the initial value is true. Then we have this if-else statement. If isRaining is true, then we write this to the logs. It says, it's raining, better bring an umbrella. If is raining is false, then we go into this else case and we write this message, it's unlikely to rain. Since is raining is true, then we fall into this case and we write, it's raining, better bring an umbrella. Because we fall into this case, we can skip the else block. This line of code lives outside the if-else statement, so it always gets executed. It says, thank you for using the weather app. Let's look for an option in the quiz that shows it's raining, better bring an umbrella, immediately followed by, thank you for using the weather app. And that's exactly option B. Now here's a different problem for you to try. Check the notes for the code snippet and then make your selection.
All right, code snippet. Going out on Slack. All right, did everybody just get it? All right, so this one's pretty easy, hopefully. Because it's just like saying, if your mom is supposed to pick you up today, then she picks you up. Else, somebody else is your backup pickup, right? Okay, so what are we talking about? A, B, or C? Okay. Come on, the Count from Sesame Street.
I think it's got it back.
What was that numbers though?
Can we see the code again? 'Cause I think we got it back.
I don't see it on these.
Slack.
I did send it on the Slack.
No,
No,
not
there's.
Oh, I sent it to Slackbot. Thank you, Slackbot. Slackbot is like Shockbot. Yeah. Way to go. Way to go. Person who also watches YouTube. All right, Bill's saying C.
Agreed.
You second the motion?
Second motion.
Maybe take a vote? Take a vote? Raise your hand if you believe it's C. Motion is passed. We shall pick C. Woohoo!
I'll be going over these answers pretty quickly, but we're going to go into more detail about if-this.
Yeah, we're skipping her. Oh no. Now we have another conditional code statement. Oh no, another conditional code statement. Oh yes. Ooh, this is fancier. But you guys should still be able to figure it out. Is it A, B, or C? Or is it attic? All of the above. We're looking at the conditional statement.
It is. No.
Let's see. I think it's C. I think it's C.
Who knows it's C?
I know it's C.
I know it's C. C.
I feel like sailing. You guys are talking about C so much. Woohoo!
Assume that this is a code snippet, so
And
that leaves the remaining choice options.
Catherine, no. Oh no, it's another one. And this one's even more complicated. You're gonna have to logic your way through things. I lied, it's actually not that. Do you have smoothie or do you not have smoothie that is free? Have you filled your card full of smoothies? Do. Find the clue. Find the clue. I have way too many pop reference. Ah man, my pop reference culture things are being wasted. You know what they say? C's earn degrees. This might be the actual scenario where that is true. C's earn nano degrees? Hey, alright.
Oh, it's C. It's C. It's C. It's 3 C's in a row, everybody. 3 C's in a row.
If only everybody had 3 C's.
Yep, C is. Maybe then it would be better.
I love smoothies. Let's be on.
No, I don't need to know about your personal life, Catherine. Stop.
In the previous quiz questions, you used your intuition to read through some if-else statements. You figured out what different messages would be printed to the logs based on certain conditions. Now let's look into these statements more formally. If-else statements are called control flow statements. It's named this way because instead of a linear flow of code where one line of code is being executed after another, the control flow statement actually allows us to jump to different parts of the code based on certain conditions. So if this condition is true, meaning the Boolean variable was set to true up here somewhere, then these statements will be executed, and it will skip this block of code. If this condition is false, then we execute these lines of code and then resume the normal linear flow of code after that. Looking at our vocab word glossary, we can look up the phrase if-else statement. One way to think about this is to use an analogy of a train track. A train track has a switch, so that given a certain condition, the train will go one way or the other. Similarly, in the if-else statement, if this condition is true, then we'll execute one path of code. If the statement is false, then we'll execute a different path of code. And then afterwards, we're going to resume the normal flow of code. The if statement is the simplest control flow statement. Notice the syntax here. We start with the word if, and then we have parentheses around the condition, and then we have an opening brace, and then a closing brace at the end of the if block of code. In this example of a pizza ordering app, if the user wants the order to be delivered to their home, then we're going to adjust the price to add $5 extra for the delivery charge. Otherwise, if the order is not for delivery, then we just skip this line of code and we don't add the extra charge for delivery. Then in these subsequent lines of code, we can use the total price variable with the correct value. Now the if-else statement is a little more advanced. If the condition in the parentheses is true, then we execute these lines of code. Then we skip this and then continue with the rest of the code. So in this game app, if the user has 0 points, then we're going to update the text view to say loser, and we're going to update the image view to be a sad face. However, if the condition is false, the person has, for example, 100 points, then we're going to skip this block of code and we're going to go down here to the else case. We're going to update the text view to show the word winner, and then we're going to update the image view to show a happy face. Then we're going to continue with these lines of code here. As you can see, the code inside the if statement can contain as many lines of code as we want, similarly with the else statement. If we want more than 2 possible code paths, we can use an else if statement. You can have as many else if blocks as you want, and then you could just end with an else at the very end. But again, all these else if and else blocks are optional. In our code here, we can fall into one of 3 possible cases depending on the value of the integer variable item count. Item count just represents the number of items in the shopping cart in our app. Let's start with the first condition. If item count is 12, then 12 is greater than 10, so that is true, and then we would execute the lines of code within this block of code. We would create a toast message that says, you get 20% off, and show it at the bottom of the screen. Since we fell into this case, then we skip this block, and then we continue with the rest of the code. What would happen if the shopping cart only had 2 items in it? Well, then item count would not be greater than 10. So this would be false, and we would skip this block of code here, and then jump down to the else if statement. Then we would check if 2 is greater than 0, and it is, so then we would fall into this case. We would show a toast message that says, thank you. Since we fell into this case, we're gonna skip this one, and then we can continue with the rest of the code. And lastly, if our shopping cart had 0 items, then this condition would be false, because 0 is not greater than 10. This condition would be false, because 0 is not greater than 0. And then we would fall into this else case here, and we would show a message that says you have an empty cart. If you ever need a reminder of the syntax of any of these statements, you can just check the official Java documentation. It tells you about the if statement, and here's an example. And then it also shows you the if-else statement, and here's the example. And lastly, there's an example with else-if statements. Based on everything that I've shown you so far, you're probably realizing that Java has a special use for the words if and else. They're Java keywords, and they're used to control how the code is executed. So you can't use these as variable names. From the examples that I showed you, you also may have started to realize that we put different expressions in this test condition here. Any expression is valid as long as it evaluates to true or false. So we can put a Boolean variable in the test condition, or for example, we can compare 2 values. We can compare 2 values using any of these equality and relational operators. We can test that 2 integers are equal to each other, or not equal to each other, or greater or less than equal to each other. And here are examples of different test conditions. Now here's a chance for you to practice typing out the syntax for a control flow statement. For this given block of code here, I want you to type it out exactly into this blank box. Write out the Java keywords if and else properly, and remember to include the parentheses around the test condition, and then remember the braces as well. When you're done typing it out, go ahead and answer this question. If we assume that the variable number of guests has a value of 10 at the start of this statement, then after it's executed this statement, what is the ending value of the variable tip?
Into the blank blocks are invited. I'm not gonna do it. So it's important to note that what we're actually doing here in terms of the conditional code is what we're saying is kind of like, hey, if you're my brother, then this. Else, if you're my friend, I'll pay half your bill instead of all of your bill. And then if you're just some schmuck, I'm not going to help you with your bill at all. Or we could say it's a 50, like, you're in financial trouble. You're my brother. I'm going to 100% help you. You're a friend. 50% chance I help you. Depends on how good of a friend. And then somebody I don't know, probably a very, very low chance I'm going to help you unless you're like funded through some sort of charitable organization. But what happens if we make the number of guests 10? How much should we tip? Like that, what is it? Bobblehead dog on my dashboard. I need one. I need to make one. That's what I need to do next. Of all the things I could do. Okay, so that's correct. Why is it correct? Which part of this statement does that hit? It hits the second part, right? Because it's more than 6, less than 20. So it's going to hit that second piece. And once it hits that second piece, it's going to skip over that last. Actually, we're gonna do this thing over here. So, has anybody seen these before? Right? Yay. Okay. So, these are things called rational operators. And what we're basically considering them as comparators. So, if we hit bang equals, think of it as dead. You know, like bang. So if somebody is alive, then they equal another alive. But if it's bang equals, it's not. It's the opposite, right? So something we could do is, example, we just covered booleans a little bit earlier. We could have like this value not equal this value. Or we could have equal equal. Now, why would we have double equal? Why would we put two equals next to each other?
Because in Java, like a equal is saying that you want to assign a value to a variable.
Right, so if we just put one equal, that means we're assigning something to it. So if I say, if this equal this, it goes, why are you trying to assign something in an if statement? I can't compare that to anything. So I don't know whether or not it's true or false. So remember that like if statements are always looking for essentially, is this true or is this not true? Yes, sir.
Dumb question. You can do that in C, you can't do that in Java.
What do you mean?
I can assign a value to a variable and evaluate it at the same time.
Yeah, you can.
You can,
You
but
can do in C, but actually that's not your intention, guys.
right, right. So in this case, we're just doing checks of comparators. So
I bring that up because in C, it's a very common beginner mistake is to type one equal sign rather than two and have bugs in the program.
right, and that's the same problem here, right?
That's why I bring it up.
Yeah, it's actually super common. So anytime you're doing a comparator, good thing to note is that it's going to involve two. It's going to involve two symbols to compare something, right? So think of, you know, your Pac-Mans versus not Pac-Mans, otherwise known as your less than or more than operators. Like the Pac-Man dying versus Pac-Man munching. Those are two different things, right? Yeah. So if we go back to math class, we can do the same kind of comparisons here. So we can say, is it greater than or equal to? The comparators for math that you learned in middle school or early high school actually are exactly the same, other than the fact that when we compare something for equality, we use double equal. And when we want to say that it's not equal, put exclamation point equal, right? Otherwise known as bang. So when you hear people say bang in code, what they're talking about is an exclamation point. Just like dash. And, I forget what this one is. Double bars.
Or
Type.
that's
No.
single. Type is single.
Yeah. But you do pipe, and then there's also the point thing. Even I can't remember.
I just called it.
Common mistake.
And you have to remember all these things. If you ever do your ham radio license, you have to remember all this stuff for some reason. All right, cool. Let's move on.
Let's add the code now to our app. We're going to start by calculating the base price of a drink. The base price is composed of two parts: the price of the coffee, which is $5, plus any toppings. So $1 for whipped cream or $2 for chocolate. We're going to take this base price and then we're going to multiply it by the quantity of cups ordered. That will bring us to the total order price. Let's calculate the price for a sample order where the user wants 3 cups of coffee with whipped cream, like this. The goal of this course is not to test your math skills, so let's walk through the calculation together to make sure that you understand it. The real goal will be for you to translate this logic into code. In this sample order, the user wants 3 cups of coffee with whipped cream, like this. First, we can start off by calculating the base price of 1 cup of coffee. We start with $5 for the coffee cup plus $1 for the whipped cream topping. That brings us to $6 per cup. Then we need to find the total order price. Since the user ordered 3 cups of coffee, we multiply $6 per cup times 3 cups. That equals $18 total for the whole order. In this sample order, we have 2 cups of coffee, and each cup has whipped cream topping and chocolate topping, like this and this. First, we calculate the base price of 1 cup. A cup of coffee costs $5, and then we add $1 for whipped cream and $2 for chocolate. That brings us to a total of $8 per cup. Then we find the total order price since the user ordered 2 cups of coffee. We take the base price of $8 per cup of coffee times 2 cups, and that brings us to $16 total for the whole order. This is what our app should look like. We can enter in a name, choose a whipped cream topping, and then change the quantity to 3. If we hit the order button, we expect the price to change to $18. And there it is. This is exactly what we calculated earlier by hand. If I add the chocolate topping, change the quantity to 2, then the total price becomes $16. Also just like we calculated, where we have $8 per cup of coffee. Now go ahead and plan out the steps that you need to do in order to add this functionality to our app. I wrote down the price of the toppings here for reference, and here's a screenshot of what the app should look like with the adjusted price here. After you've planned...
Whoa, what just happened? No. Something go weird. Something went weird.
Source change?
Just a second. No, not HDMI 1. Is that us again? Yeah. Should be. Should be. Come on. Don't die on me. Don't die on me, Martino.
It came back.
Yeah, but where did my... There it went. There it went. Okay. So, one thing that's important to note is that unlike math class, the equal sign is on the other side. So when you're assigning something, you put the thing that you want to assign on the left, and you put essentially the values or the calculations that you want it to be on the right. So if you remember in math class, in high school, and middle school, and grade school, you always had the equation, then an equal sign, and then you had like the empty space. But in Code World, it's backwards. Because what we want to do is assign the thing on the left to whatever the equation is on the right.
For the whipped cream and chocolate, do we have to do that per coffee? Or is that just...
So
The app right now is all.
So this time, right now, we can only order as a group, right? So we need to have like, if we have whipped cream checked and chocolate checked, that'll be true for every single one of those coffees. So we could compute those individually and then multiply it by 15. Or what we could do is compute it all at once, since we know that they all have to have whatever the options are selected, and just put that multiplier at the end. Right, so if you have 15 of the same thing, shouldn't every coffee cost the same? And shouldn't the total just reflect 15 times? Yeah. We don't have options to order different kinds of coffee, man. We got one type of coffee in this joint. That is, if somebody wants chocolate, everybody's getting chocolate. If somebody wants whipped cream, everybody's getting whipped cream. Poor guy who just wants a black coffee is never getting what he wants. Somebody's always gonna... I mean, when's the last time you said no to whipped cream? Or chocolate? Nobody can even remember. Nobody can even remember.
So you check, this one you have. Why would you want to check?
Why would you? Yeah, I know. It's kind of the case of like going, well, they could be using like just Hershey's chocolate syrup, which I'm not a fan of, but I will take the whipped cream. Yeah.
Well, if you only have $5 in your pocket.
What?
If you only have $5.
Yeah, apparently somebody who was actually a family member got me a gift card for less than $5 at Starbucks for Christmas one year. I can only assume that they had used the gift card and then gave it to me. So I'm like, I don't think you can really get a gift card from Starbucks for less than $4. I mean, it was literally, I ordered a coffee and it was like $4.30. I'm like, oh, how much is left on the card? And they're like, 32 cents, madam. And I'm like, you know what? Just keep it. It's not worth keeping it in my wallet for 32 cents. I can find 32 cents in like the seat of my car. You know, I'm not gonna carry a gift card for that, especially because I don't really go to Starbucks. But you ever question how much somebody left you? Well, I mean, they put a number on it, and it was less than $5.
It was left over after they got what they got.
Yeah.
No, the way to look at it is they gave you the very last of what they had. They gave you everything they had.
The amount of sunshines and rainbows you must just have gleaming at you in the morning. Oh, that's almost depressing to me to know how much sunshine and rainbows that you have. I don't have.
That optimism was impressive.
The level of optimism is actually depressing me right now.
So y'all just need to get around more.
I feel like if I could start my day seeing my number of rainbows, unicorns, or whatever, I don't know, I might get concerned and be like, why is it lower than yesterday? Like, why is it higher? Have I been drinking?
Did I take more psychoactive drugs? Is that okay? Did somebody send me a Vicodin? What happened? Yes. So let's adjust these prices based off of the toppings. So if we know that whipped cream costs $1 more and chocolate costs $2 more, let's make the math happen. Math. Have you got your emulators?
I guess I would test.
Okay.
Start a new project.
The best way to test, we're gonna click start a new project. Just gonna give it a name. We'll say yes on that. And we'll just do basic activity. And do finish. I know. It disappeared on me. Sorry guys, my work has made it so that it goes to sleep after like 30 seconds. I apologize.
Why is keeping a checkbox check? You launch the app.
If it's instant run, like you just said, yes, because you haven't affected any of the logic, so it only updates logic. But under normal circumstances, unless you have saved that checkbox is checked, it shall be a preference that you then load again to tell it to be checked or not checked. It will not be automatically checked.
How do you do that?
What? Okay, show me your things. Right. So it's in just a moment, So, okay, let's go to Android SDK. We will launch this as a separate thing. Launch standalone. Standalone. Come and show me. Right. It's a thing. If I, wait a second. You're not checking whether or not I uncheck the checkboxes. To adjust the price. Yeah. I can make siren noises too. And that wasn't an invitation to make actual siren noises, everybody. Love y'all, but like. Oh man.
You might need help or Question.
To make all of these things. So what kind of processor do you have in your laptop?
I think it's,
Perfect. You know why? Because that means
That's
you
your app?
can use the Intel Atom 64 image. Yeah, we want to use the Google API as well.
Because otherwise you make it a work for some reason, but that's the functionality for it to not do that. It's because when I say decrement, I say this, so the quantity is less than 0.
So my joke is, there's two real problems with computer science that you have to be good.
Let me in the workshop. The keys in the bus.
Naming things off by the letters. Probably have an off by the letters.
So
The otherwise known as the almost error. Do you agree? Accept the license? Okay. Yeah, I know, but it's your computer. I'm touching it. It's ultimately your thing.
it's work tomorrow.
I think it will. It's a Samsung. It'll be okay.
So
He's with SDK managers, when I see any clips of downloaded like 15 megabytes of graphics.
This is why it had all of those things checked. Yeah, really. I don't keep that much stuff installed. There's no reason that you should ever keep that much stuff installed. Because if you download like every single component they've had, it's almost like 200 gigabytes of stuff. Just like, no thank you. No thank you.
If it said this thing, it's definitely not as easy as
yeah, no, but like since I have
web
it
stuff.
online inside the statement.
There's not as many tools made for it. Everybody has websites, not everybody does. When you like first learn to code, a lot of the time, what do you learn to code? Like, what do you learn to put together? It's probably a website, right?
Right. These days, yeah. So actually, what I'm interested in gathering to write labs for iOS.
So
I want to see if that's even makes.
that's got a different name now. It's called like Cortana or something.
Cordova.
Cordova.
Actually, that's the original name. I'll get it, the commercial.
Right.
But I figured at some point I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to understand errors that are probably in code specific messages. If I don't understand the Android piece of it, it's not gonna help me understand the
Right. And then there's also,
visual basic.
if you want to use stuff that they don't have plugins for, that's another thing. Because you're going to need to know how to write like accessor methods that can get used by the application. Now, the other thing I would say is even though if you're looking to use Cordova and all that and get it set up that way, is that you should probably still make your UI different for Android versus iOS. They use the same elements, yeah. Because they just, and
I just want the
so are you hoping to write it in JavaScript
So I had the
primarily, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna use it like this thing. So I don't have to learn a million different tool sets just to get something out there.
Have you looked at some of the other JavaScript-based packages for being able to build apps cross-platform?
I just started with this stuff.
Okay. There's another one, and I can't remember the name for it. If you just look up JavaScript Android, iOS, it'll show up. It's a commercial package.
you thinking Angular?
I actually know some Angular, and I'm building an app currently with Polymer, which I think is pretty cool. I like how some of the components are set up in Polymer. Even though Polymer 2.0 is very little documentation. For Polymer 1.0, really?
What does Polymer do?
It's basically more UI based, but totally decoupled. So you know how like Angular has the coupling that has to happen? You can decouple your UI backend and all that other stuff in Polymer. Even though you can use Polymer with Angular. Yes, sir.
Showing an error for name, so that might fix the checkbox. It's showing an error that might fix the checkbox. So here, I did this, right? So I set usage of this class.
Yeah, I also have a total variable. It's
This got intense. Your issue is actually trying to do it with a bundle.
Here, that's the only instance where I used total.
That isn't gonna tell you why it's not happening. Are you looking at the log messages at all?
So
I don't see a lot of logs happening right now.
Showing error. So
Yeah, not with, check out that Java. Pass it as a Java. Right now we're keeping everything centralized. But what does it actually tell you when you hit the checkbox? Yeah, you put a log inside your method. Either that. The problem is not abstraction. Abstraction is not going to help you with your problem. Yeah, move it all back. Alright. A lot of you guys have shown me, so we can move on, because we still have a lot of stuff to cover. And we got 30 minutes to do it in. But we're gonna have some homework, so we're gonna skip these people because we saw you actually do it. Oh no!
In our app, if you hit the minus button too many times, we get a negative number of cups of coffee. That's a problem because what does that even mean? We probably shouldn't allow this to happen in our app. And the earlier we deal with it within our app, then it'll cause less headache for us later on. For example, we don't want to submit a bunch of orders to the coffee shop with a negative number of cups of coffee. And at the other end of the spectrum, there probably should also be a maximum number of coffees that we allow the user to order at a single time. We can't really serve 10,000 cups of coffee at a time. Now that we've identified the problem, let's decide on a better behavior for our app. How about if we only allow the customer to order between 1 and 100 cups of coffee? In our app, when the user tries to press the minus button and it's already displaying 1 cup of coffee, then the quantity shouldn't go below that. Likewise, if there are 100 cups of coffee and the user continues to press the plus button, the quantity should stay at 100. We can do this by something called input checking. By checking what the user inputs into the app, we can recognize bad input as soon as possible and then prevent the app from continuing the normal flow of execution. For this quiz, make this change in your app. Assume that the app always starts at 2 cups of coffee when you first launch it. To find the right place to make the code change, think about when the problem first occurs. What button does the user press? And what code is triggered by that button? Since the app has different behavior depending on whether the number of cups of coffee is valid or not, think about using a control flow statement, like an if-else statement. That way the logic in the app can be different based on a certain condition. If the user is trying to order a number of cups of coffee outside of these bounds, then figure out how to stop the app from continuing. Once you make these changes, answer these questions. Which method did you modify so that the quantity does not go below 1 cup of coffee? Write your answer in this box. Then, which method did you modify so that the quantity doesn't go above 100 cups of coffee? Write your answer in this box. As a hint, it may be useful for you to know that you can put a return statement anywhere inside a method, and that will cause you to exit the method early. Then the rest of the code after that will be skipped. Check the instructor notes for more details. As a challenge, you can extend the app to also add a toast message that explains to the user why the quantity isn't updating when it hits these bounds. This is what the toast message could look like in the app when you've hit the lower bound. If I hit the minus button a bunch of times to try to go below 1 cup of coffee, it shows this toast message. You cannot have less than 1 coffee. By the way, if you want to test if the upper bound works, instead of tapping the plus button 99 times, you can just make a temporary change in the code. You can change the initial global quantity variable in the Java file and the initial quantity value in the XML to start at a higher number like 99 instead of just 2. Then you'll only have to hit the plus button a couple of times to go over 100 cups of coffee. I highly recommend testing this to make sure that your code works as expected for the upper bound. When you're done with all of this, go ahead and continue.
Alrighty, let's do it. We ready? We ready? We doing? We doing? Happy times, fun times. Where do we need to modify this code so we only use X number? We only can have so many coffees. We can't have no coffees because we can't order nothing. Hitting the button would be useless, right? So we have to be starting at 1. We don't want to be able to order more than 100. Because 99 cups of coffee is still a lot of coffee. I don't think anybody here has a car that is equipped to move 99 cups of coffee. Not at once. Not all packaged up cases. You have the ability to move 99 cups of coffee? That would be impressive. All right, let's hit cancel. All right, so this guy that looks like a little phone, this is what we call the Android Virtual Device Manager. So let's create a virtual device. So let's do a Nexus 5X, that's a good one. And let's do Marshmallow, because we've already got it. And we'll just keep it portrait, graphics model. No, you can just flip it. It's just the automatic, yeah. Right, so for starting this, we would have to hit play. Oh, all right, so you don't have vt.x, so doesn't matter if you have vt, yeah, you do. You have the little sticker. So this is actually something that you can enable in your BIOS settings to allow it to run natively. So other than that, what we can do to get you up and going like a million. Like it's not, yeah. You may not want to do it right this second. So what we can do is download another. So what we can do is get the ARM image, which is substantially slower. Oh wait, we're gonna hit cancel because we need to download the ARM image. So for the x86 ones, it really wants to use the it wants to use the hardware virtualization, so it calls it BT-X. It just means that it can access the actual processor on the computer instead of emulating a full processor. So we go on down. Okay, so we've got tool APIs, ARM EAVI. That just means it's an ARM processor. Okay, what else did it try to install? No.
Like next time we show up.
This is why it's idiot.
Yeah.
This should actually be You might think, yeah.
Need this?
Well, in this case, you don't have a phone that's ready to go and connect to this. So normally, what you would have is a phone, you put it in debug mode and you connect it and it's just ready to go. But since you don't have a phone and you want to be able to test multiple devices and test whether or not something looks good and all that other stuff, you would use a virtual device. Now, for the other thing is that because you don't have a Mac, building cross-platform for Apple devices is going to be, yeah, you won't be able to do it. There's some.
This thing's like 3 or 4 years old, right? So it's not like I decided. I knew that.
No, yeah, I know, but there's,
But yeah.
if you look at that one JavaScript package, they've got some compilers online that you can use to send stuff through.
New Pokemon?
So,
I stopped playing it.
Yeah.
Because
all right,
my
we'll wait for this. And then what I want you to try and do is actually create
they were sitting on
virtual
the
device
couch
just
over
the
my
same way that we did before.
and they were like,
Oh,
hey, let's take over this gym.
Except
Or
this time,
this
it
gym. I'm like,
contains the
gym
All right?
Oh yeah,
Cool.
we're spoofing our
Alrighty.
GPS location. I'm like, man, screw this.
Alrighty, guys, we're gonna move on. And that was my phone.
Now that we have the order summary, we need to send it off in an email so that we can actually get our coffee. This is what it would look like when we hit the order button. It opens up an email app on the device with a pre-populated message containing the coffee order and a custom subject line. In order to accomplish this, we need to understand a new topic in Android called intents. An intent is a message that requests some type of action to be performed by another app component, such as an activity in another app. This is a powerful part of the Android framework because our app can leverage functionality that other apps provide, like sending an email, opening the camera, or viewing a map. It lets us be efficient and smart as developers because we're not reinventing what other apps already do well. Think of sending intents like tossing a ball to someone. In the same way that a person can toss a ball to another person, an app component can send an intent to another app component. Here are some examples from apps that you might recognize. In the Google Keep note-taking app, the user can hit the camera icon to take a photo. While the Google Keep team could have written their own camera functionality, instead, they get it for free by sending an intent to open up a camera app on the device. Similarly, in the Yelp app, clicking on the location of a business sends an intent to open up a Maps app on the device to provide turn-by-turn navigation instructions to the user. And lastly, for a restaurant page in the Google Maps app, clicking on the call button sends an intent to launch the dialer app so that the user can make a phone call to the restaurant. The coolest part about sending intents is that you don't have to know precisely which app is capable of handling it. There could be multiple apps on the device that could handle the intent, but ultimately only one needs to handle it. Using our analogy, when you throw the ball, you don't have to know who you're throwing it at as long as someone catches it. Let me show you what I mean. For a restaurant listing in the Google Maps app, clicking on website sends an intent to display the restaurant website. Now, the Maps app actually doesn't care which web browser handles the request. If the user only has one web browser installed on their device, then that app will automatically handle the request. However, if the user has 4 web browsers installed on their device, then the Android framework will pop up a window to ask the user to just pick one. This is what it looks like. The pop-up window is known as a disambiguation dialog. Once the user makes a choice, then the system sends the intent to the selected app to handle the action, and in this case, the restaurant website is displayed. Now let's move on to talking about what's contained inside this ball that represent an intent. You can think of an intent as a message specifying some operation to be performed. It contains 2 primary things, the general action and some data to act upon. You can also specify additional information such as category, component, and extras, which is literally extra information. All of these things are used by Android to determine which app component can actually handle the intent. For example, a Maps intent would contain the action view, and the data would be the latitude and longitude coordinates of the location that we want to see. The rest of the fields can be blank. Then, any app that's capable of displaying latitude and longitude coordinates can be used to handle the request. which is probably any Maps application. Another example is to use an intent to dial a phone number. In this case, you would compose an intent where the action is action dial, and the corresponding data is the telephone number to call. Notice that the format is in the form tel, followed by the number. This formatted string is called a URI, short for Uniform Resource Identifier. This is a standardized way to structure data so that it can be properly processed on the receiving end. Think about it like a mailing address. It follows a structure so that it can be delivered properly. In the case of sending an intent, a URI is needed so that the data can be properly passed to the receiving app component. Depending on the data encoded in the intent, the scheme may change, such as this case or the geo case that we saw earlier.
Okay, so when we talked earlier, and if you've actually looked at the link that I sent you earlier.
In this coding task, I want you to use an intent to send an order summary to an email app. But first, take some time to experiment with writing code for different intents.
All right, so I wanted to go a little bit about intents for a second. So one of the things that I listed in the final application thing that I sent you guys today talked about social sharing. So intents are not just how we can open emails or send email, or we can send location information, but it's also how we can send information that we want to share. So let's say I saw something really cool on this particular app and I hit the share icon. That sends out a generic share intent, and all the things that can actually use it are the things that pop up. So if I wanted to share it and post it on Twitter, you see that you get Twitter, email, and you get web browser, and a bunch of other stuff to look at as ways to share it, or SMS. That's how that actually works. So intents can be used to pass information from one activity to the next, but sometimes they can be used to launch, say, hey, I've got content, I want it to go somewhere else. So was that kind of explained well in the video, or does that? So here we're going to talk about what it means to actually use that and have a real example of it. Also, did you notice she's now getting her nails painted?
And they match the color.
Yeah, they match whatever and they're professional.
Listed in the Common Intents Guide. See the instructor notes for the link. You can also do a web search for common intents, and it's the first link that pops up. This is a really useful article that you can use to find out what's possible on Android. For practice purposes, let's try creating a Maps intent. The documentation has some useful information on the action and the data URI scheme that you should use for a Maps intent. Again, it shows geo, latitude, longitude. If you scroll down, you see some example code. I'm going to select this and copy it. Now to run this code, let's just paste it inside the Just Java app. We could create a brand new application to paste the code so we could run it there, but since Just Java is already up and running, let's just use that. I'm going to highlight all this code within this method and just comment it out temporarily. I did that by hitting Command / on a Mac, and on Windows, it would be Control /. Now none of this code is going to be executed. When the order button is clicked, I want to send a Maps intent. In this line of code, we're creating a new intent object using the new keyword in Java. We're calling the intent constructor and passing it a view action. Note that when you see something in all caps in Java, it means it's a constant. A constant is a variable whose contents, once set, never changes. In this case, when composing our intent, we use official intent actions, such as action_view or action_send, which are defined as constants within the intent class. So to recap, this line of code creates a new object instance called intent. And then on the intent object, we can call different methods, like setData. We want to set the data URI to be a certain set of latitude and longitude coordinates. Currently, this variable is unrecognized in our app, so I'm going to replace it. This part of the code creates a URI from this string here. And then this URI is set as the data field within this intent object. Now we have our Maps intent created. Down here, we have some code that looks a little bit confusing. There's a lot going on, but essentially we're just preventing the app from crashing by checking to see if the intent can be handled. In terms of our ball analogy, it means that if no one is available to catch the ball, Then the bulb drops and there's an explosion because the system doesn't know what to do next. And that's why we need this line of code here. We're checking to see if there's at least one component on the device that can handle this intent. If so, then this condition for the if statement is true, and then we execute the line of code here within these braces. We go ahead and start the activity with this intent. If there's no app component on the device that can handle this intent, then this test condition is false, and we skip this block of code and we do not send the intent. After you've finished experimenting with intents, go ahead and extend our app to have this functionality. We're going to use an intent to send the order summary to an email app, and then we're going to populate the email message with this text and this subject line. Be sure to also remove code that displays the order summary within the Just Java app. Once it shows up in the email app, we don't need it anymore in our app. As a reminder, this is what the app should look like. There's no more order summary field anymore. And when I hit the order button, we go straight into the email app. Now all the user needs to do is populate the to field, and then they can send the message.
How cool is that? You guys don't need to know anything about writing emails. So if you did the bonus from the challenge, the previous challenge, you would have probably have done this, right? So you have a little bit of exposure. That's kind of why I push you guys. So then you can go, oh, I know how to do that. You can do an even better experiment than just email. Why don't you send it to me as an SMS? Ooh. You guys have to look up how to do SMSs. So intents have what's called a MIME type, like when you indicated, if you see on there and it says like text HTML or text this or SMS that, that's what's known as a MIME type. Now, there's a really good list of MIME types. I'm gonna look up the thing. Fish.
Yeah, the make it fish.
There's a really good list. Somebody listed a whole bunch of MIMEs. But they also have it on the developer.google type. There's also a way to like automatically figure out if your content, what kind of thing it can be. See, if you've already done email, why don't you do SMS? Why don't you send me this as a text message? Ooh. You can decide whether or not you want to go bonus. All right, so I put all the code in there in the Slack channel
So are
for you to be able to do this.
Are the MIME types like the topics and the apps subscribers to anything that handles that topic?
So you'd have a special type of what we're calling a receiver, right? To be able to take that content that's being sent by that intent and be able to use it. If you've registered that you are a receiver of these MIME types, then you can actually get what that intent is trying to send. And you also need to match the content. So like, for instance, attaching a picture, an actual physical picture, like very few MIME types, very few receivers can handle a MIME type of text plus an image. Like that's pretty much just email. And sometimes SMS can do it, but you have to send a totally different MIME type for that. But if you said, I just want to declare that this is basic text, and my MIME type is just basic text, and I just put text in there, you will get almost every other type of thing that you can think of for like Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, all in one. If you want to send a subject and a body, you're only going to receive a smaller group of applications because like an SMS doesn't have a title, right? It only has a body of text. So, and even that, there's multiple ways to get it to send an SMS. So you can do it with type SMS, or you can do it with type text. Wink, wink, things happening. Okay. So.
Yeah, I couldn't find that.
Alright, so if we look at making another Nexus 5X and hit next. And we look at, Huh? Why did it not pick up the other images? Other images, yes. Did it not finish? Weird.
So that top one says on something really.
Yeah, but we should pick it up. Yeah, we can hit download for the ARM. V6. We'll launch it directly into it. Marshmallow is the currently distributed release. And otherwise known as Nougat is what will be released at the end of August. Side note, is anybody fully N compatible? No.
Haven't even upgraded that Java to 1.8 or whatever it is.
It's so figuring out. There's so many views and so many resizings that you could do and multi-windows and stuff.
I haven't even looked at
Yeah,
it.
you just put like curves and stuff on it.
Yeah, you can do all kinds of. So that when N comes out, there's gonna be nobody who's 100% perfect N, except for maybe Google. And even then, like a lot of stuff like photos and stuff will be.
I forgot how you can have two for access for I guess I'm not happy with it. Like, you know how in your web browser and computer you can get YouTube and like an ad on another web page for at the same time?
Yeah, that's basically
I
what
don't know
you're
what
doing.
happens. You have YouTube and your music program open on your phone.
So the bigger thing that I thought was the biggest thing from I/O is definitely instant apps, because that means that the mobile web people are dead. That covers 95% of all users ever. So, and if you consider that 90% plus of web traffic is going through Google for search, that means that only like at most 10% of Android users will ever even hit the mobile website once Instant Apps rolls through.
Within iOS users, they don't have it, so you got a mobile web.
I know, but
So they're
it's
gonna have
like
to build mobile web.
it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be very interesting politically for what it does for large companies.
Well, it'll probably be a while. I mean, apps are just now saying we're Marshmallow ready, so you know. But
No, Instant Apps doesn't care if you're Marshmallow ready or not.
I'm just saying from the
Oh no, it's gonna do. Just believe me, the distribution. Everybody's gonna jump on that thing like later, right? Because every app developer secretly hates all the mobile web developers. You know, in a small way.
instant adoption,
It's
relatively.
it's gonna be instant adoption. I'm just like going, wow, that's a huge middle finger to every mobile web developer in the world. Like, just put their jobs like that much lower. It did. I mean, it's hard enough to find Android people. Now you're just like going, well, mobile web people, you either learn Android or you're STFU.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, no, I watched this weird thing with their apps too, where if you, any in-app purchases have to be, you have to give 30% to Google, I should say, even if it's like a subscription.
no, you don't have to
I'm
do
sorry, not Google,
that.
Apple, I was at Apple.
Yeah, so Google's not gonna do that.
Okay, no,
It has to use
iOS.
Apple Pay or Android Pay or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's actually just gonna use like little, so when we talk about like activities, like literally it will just download the activities and the fragments that pertain to that thing, and as long as it's like less than, I think it's gonna be like a maximum of 2 megabytes code, which most things are gonna be really small. As long as your code is nice and segmented and abstracted in good ways, it means that you're gonna be able to do it really fast. And you're gonna be able to, what they actually found is a lot of times with mobile web pages, when you look at them, they load usually like a mega code. So if you think about somebody being able to use an app that's gonna like work better, flow better, scroll better, everything else like that, and actually still use less data overall, because it doesn't have to draw on each component, right? So it's hard to say no to that. So you get better battery, and you get better performance, and you're using less data. And there's nothing that like web can really do other than build like interface aware applications. If they're not going to do that, then that puts them square into one platform versus the other. So why is this taking so long to unzip?
They got unfreed up some business space. They got plans.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. All right, do those things. Do those things. Okay. All right, guys, we're officially over time by 2 minutes. I apologize. We are going to say yes to these things, especially if I know that you did the bonus from the previous challenge. I don't know why they can't seem to draw square boxes and put the squares in the middle of the boxes. But
Hopefully you had a chance to experiment with using different. I recommend that you check those out on your own after you finish this course.
yes, do check them out on your own. They're very interesting. It's a very good way to do things. All right,
When we put an app on the Google Play Store, we'll have a whole
Now-
range of users.
guys, this is going to be the last video we're going to watch, and then we're going to have the rest as homework. And then we'll actually work on our project. Do you guys want to have like a little mini online session next Tuesday, where it's going to be like a question and answers type thing, like a hangout? Does that sound like a good idea for everybody? We'll do it we'll start at 7 and we'll go to like maybe 8:30, so that we just have like kind of a basic question and answers. If you've been stuck on stuff.
So
Or-
about our app, basically.
Yeah, about your app primarily, and then that way maybe it can answer multiple people's questions at once. Because I've had a lot of stuff where I'm like repeating myself a lot, and I love y'all, but I am very good with the
Repetition
copy
gets old.
paste. In fact, I have dedicated on my custom keyboards an entire function key just to copy and paste. Because I'm too lazy to hit command copy and command paste, or control paste and things. I'm just like, function, this is now paste, this is now copy. Maybe I got used lazy and used my mouse, but that's a different thing. All right,
How
guys,
to
final
anticipate
video.
what type of device our app will be running on. Maybe a phone or a tablet, maybe an older version of the Android platform, or maybe a different language than what we're using. There are many best practices that you can follow when building your app to make it work well for all these types of users. One best practice is to localize your app. There's a handy localization checklist that you can refer to. Localization means adapting your app to different locales, meaning language and country combinations, to make it a positive user experience for all types of users. At the surface level, this can have an impact on the design of your app, as well as the text strings that appear in your app. For now, we're going to focus on how we can make your app support different languages. First, let's look at the device experience from the user's perspective. If I prefer to use a different language, I can go into the Settings app and then tap on the Language and Input setting. If I tap on Language, then I see the whole list of languages that are supported on Android. It includes character-based languages like Chinese and right-to-left languages like Arabic. I'm going to change the language to Spanish. And just like that, all the text is now showing up in Spanish. You can see this across the whole Settings app. If you check the other apps on the device, those will appear in Spanish if the developer chose to support that language. However, when you open up our Just Java app, it's a jarring experience because everything in this app is still in English, while the other apps on the device are in Spanish. So how do we make our app support Spanish? So far, we know that our app can contain Java files and resources. We can provide default resources for our app, but we can also provide alternate resources depending on the user's physical device size, language setting, version of Android, or number of pixels on the screen, to name a few. In our Just Java app, we can provide default text strings in English. we can provide alternate text streams in other languages. So if someone has French as a default language on their device, the system will automatically load the French translations instead of the default English ones. This article explains how you can support multiple languages in an app. Scrolling down, you can look at the project structure. Within the res directory, you can add another subdirectory that contains resources for a certain language. This is the default values folder, and we're choosing to put all the English text strings here. In the values ES folder, we have all the Spanish text strings. In the values-fr folder, we have all the French translations. If the user chooses Spanish as the language on their device, then the system will load these resources from the values ES folder. If this folder didn't exist, then the system would just fall back to the default resources. If the user has French as the default language on their device, then the system will load these resources. By the way, ES is the language code for Spanish, and FR is the language code for French. Android uses the ISO language codes. Here are some examples of languages and the two-letter language codes that correspond with them. Let's go back to implementation details. In order for the system to switch out different translations for the text in our app, we need to isolate all the text from all the other logic in our app. We do this by creating a strings.xml file in the values folder. This is an XML resource file that contains a list of all the string resources that are visible to the user. This is the first time we're seeing XML be used for something other than defining a layout. This is defining a list of resources. This is one string resource, and the name that we use to refer to it is called title. And the value of this string is my application. This is another string resource, and we refer to it using hello_world, and the actual value is hello world. Then in the values ES folder, we can create a strings.xml file, but now these have the Spanish translations of those same strings. This string resource still goes by the name of title, like here, but now the value is the Spanish translation of my application. The same applies for the hello world string resource with the Spanish translation here now. And this is one more example of the French translations of the strings.xml file. Once our strings are declared as resources, we can then refer to them in the XML or Java using the appropriate syntax. In the Java code, we refer to strings like this. In the Java code, this is how we reference string resources. First, we call the method getResources to get the app's resources. Then we call getString, and we pass as input the resource ID of the string. In this case, it's r.string.hello_world. String is the resource type, and hello_world is the name of the resource. All of this on the right-hand side ends up becoming the hello world string and is stored in this string variable. This whole expression evaluates to hello world and gets stored in this variable. By the way, this is similar to how we refer to image resources in the Java code using r.drawable.photo or whatever the name of the image is. In the XML, we can refer to the strings using the @string notation and then the name of the string resource. Now the XML and the Java code can stay the same regardless of what language the user has chosen on their device. We don't need a different layout file that has the Spanish translation for the text attribute here. Android will load the correct translations depending on the primary language selected on the device. Pretty awesome, huh? Let's walk through each of these steps so that you can see how to localize the strings in your app. First, we want to extract all the hard-coded strings from the XML and Java files into a default strings.xml file. Then we're going to update the XML and Java files to refer to the appropriate string resources. And then we're going to provide alternate translations in another language. Let's start with step 1. In our activity main layout, let's look at the strings that are currently hard-coded into our layout. We have a text view that displays the word toppings as a header in the UI. Currently, the English word is hard-coded into the layout, and we even get a warning from Android Studio talking about it. It recommends that we use an @string resource, so let's do that now. I'm going to delete this and then type in @string/toppings as the name of the resource. But now I get an error saying that Android Studio doesn't recognize this resource. I need to go into the strings.xml file and define it. Looking at the file structure of our app, I can go into the res values folder and look for the strings.xml file. There are a couple of strings that are already populated here, and I'm going to add another one. I just declared a new string resource with the name toppings, and the value is the English word for toppings. The name of the string resource isn't going to change, but the translated value will change depending on the language. Notice that I added a comment here to describe where the string is being used in the app. This will help the translator or the translation service who's helping out to understand the context in which this string is being used in our app. We also specify a character limit. This is also helpful for the translator when space in the UI is limited. For example, the translator won't pick a really long translation if they understand that we have limited screen real estate. Going back to our layout file, now the error is gone because this string resource exists. Now, how about hard-coded strings within our Java files? Let's take a look at our create order summary method, which has a bunch of English strings hard-coded in. Let's start by moving the phrase thank you to the strings.xml file. And here's the new string resource with the name thank_you. Then we can update the Java statement to refer to the new string resource by its name. We're using the getString method within the activity class, which takes as input a string resource and returns a string. The thank you string is then added onto this whole message. In certain cases, you might not want to translate parts of a text string. For example, you might want to create a string and then leave spots that can be filled in later with variables. In that case, you want to mark off the spots that shouldn't be translated with an xlif tag. It wouldn't make sense to translate the user's name, but it would make sense to translate name. So when used properly, this whole string resource would show up as name, and then the person's name, like Amy. With the xlif tag, you give it an ID, which is name, and then you can specify an example, like Amy. Inside the xlif tags, you would put the string that shouldn't be translated. In this case, we're using the %s formatter symbol, which specifies that a string will be substituted in here later. If you're wondering why we don't just add the strings using the plus symbol in the Java code, the reason is because declaring it as a string resource allows the translator to decide if this is the right format for the text. The translator may decide to flip the order of some of these words so that it makes more sense in the local context. The translator only has control over the words in the strings.xml file. They don't have control over the Java code. For the xlif tag to be recognized, you'll also want to add this thing to the resources tag in your strings.xml file. Now in the Java code, we're going to replace this part of the order summary with our string resource. Now we're using the order summary name string resource, and we're filling in the blank using the name variable. Normally, this getString method in the activity would take as argument one input, which is just the string resource. But now it takes in two arguments because we want to pass in the name variable and have that be inserted into the blank spot in this string. If your string resource had two spots that needed to be filled in, then you would pass in two additional inputs here, so that would be a total of 3 inputs to the method call, and so on from there. If you want any more clarification on how to use the xlif tags, you can check the localization checklist, which is linked in the instructor notes below. So far, we've covered these 2 steps, and now we're going to look at providing alternate translations in another language. So in Android Studio, there's actually a neat little tool called the Translations Editor. You can access it by clicking on Open Editor, or you can right-click on the strings.xml file and then click on Open Translations Editor. There's a column for the name of the string resource, and then the default value, which is the English translation right now. Each row corresponds to another string resource that we defined in our strings.xml file. If we click on the globe icon here, we can add a new language. I'm going to type Spanish and add Spanish. You can click on the cell here to provide the Spanish translation for the string resource, thank you. I'm going to type in gracias, which means thank you, in my terrible Spanish accent. We can do the same for our toppings header, and this is the Spanish translation. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Now let's rebuild our app. My device still has Spanish as the default language, and when I open up our app, now I see that the toppings header is translated in Spanish. The rest is still in English because I haven't finished it yet. And then when I click on the order button, then I see gracias. It's awesome that it worked. Behind the scenes, the translation editor did a couple of things for us. It created the Spanish version of the strings.xml file. When you click on that, you can see that it automatically added the translations in. If we didn't provide Spanish translations, then it doesn't appear here. As a developer, you have the option of modifying the strings file directly or using the translations editor. If you want to add more languages, you can simply click on the globe icon here. Cool, we just finished all 3 steps for localizing a couple of strings into Spanish. Now there are a few other hard-coded strings that we missed, but this time I'd like you to take the lead in localizing them. You'll find Spanish translations for these text strings in the instructor notes below, but you're welcome to pick another language of your choice. At the end, your app should look like this, assuming that you chose Spanish. And then when you hit the order button, the email subject line and the message body are both in Spanish.
All right, guys. So we've gone through the video, but we're gonna have everybody do this at home because we're already at 9:20, and that's kind of late because I know a lot of people want to get to bed by 10 o'clock. Yes, sir.
Couple of questions. Is there a website that will do a good job translating the file for me in case I don't know, say Spanish, French, or whatever?
Google Translate is awesome at translating single words and small context meanings.
So can I translate the whole strings file?
No, it's not going to give you an XML file that's ready to go. But I have seen some tools on GitHub that basically send your labels and your text to Google Translate and then give it back to you. Yes?
Second question, does the email app supposed to run in the emulator?
Yes.
You set up an account just like you do on your Android device, and it will.
Oh, okay, you have to go through all that.
Yep, or it'll actually pop up as using the embedded email one, and it'll pop up as an option. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Is everybody ready for like the next week's Q&A and like has things on their app? Does anybody need help with an app idea? Yes? No? Yes, no, maybe so? Well, we are out of sandwiches, but we have plenty of chips, and I don't know if anybody really needs a lot of mayonnaise at home. But, hey, 3 calories. I don't know how broke y'all are. Eating mayonnaise is pretty awful.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Hey man, top ramen gnocchi. It's a thing. I got so broke. I only had $40 to live, like for a month. For a month. Yeah, everybody's like, wait, so you can like, even just being able to like eat, survive.
Even ramen's expensive at that point.
Yeah, it is.
Ramen's at least a quarter, isn't it?
Not when you buy in a bulk pack. $25 in ramen at 10 cents a pack. There's a lot of things you can do with ramen. So that meant I had $15 to spend on other ingredients, which means, oh, and if you think about a month's worth of meals, that's 90 meals. You did not buy 90 packets of top ramen. You're going to be splitting those packages of top ramen into multiple servings.
Good times.
I don't know how I did it. I really don't. It was some kind of miracle. That was, it really was what it was all about. Because I'm like, okay, I can afford eggs because I get a dozen eggs, $2. I can afford carrots. Carrots are really cheap. They keep for a long time. You can shave some carrot in there. Cooking oil. Cooking oil is pretty cheap.
Let's do it right now because it's close to being taxable. So
You actually have a kitchen to cook in?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
Student level kitchen, which basically means I was the only girl in a apartment complex with a bunch of guys. I did have my own bathroom though. They all had to share a bathroom. 4-bedroom apartment. Like the tiniest kitchen, living space.
It's going to take me a little bit of a while to prioritize what I can do.
Okay.
So,
The best thing for you to do is to get with me on Slack And let me know if you can follow the steps to create an Android virtual device. If you're having trouble with that, let me know.
Oh, wait, so it's just like on
Create
the
an alarm or virtual device.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because you haven't enabled the virtualization.
You
Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is look at enabling virtualization for.
I'll probably try that first.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to go. Wow, do you have the original cover on that from when you bought it?
This thing.
Yeah, the plastic. Oh my gosh. I love ripping the plastic off stuff. It's like, it was actually one of my greatest joys when I worked at doing R&D for phones,
Okay, I'll update it.
for new phones to go
I'll
out
update
in the
it
world.
online, actually.
I did R&D for like Motorola, Samsung, all that stuff.
Alright, this thing
And
sits
then I'll
on-
send you stuff
sits
straight
on
from the factory.
my home
You get to rip the
office
plastic off.
desktop. So originally, it was like, I'm not gonna take the cover off because I might have to send it back.
Okay.
3 years
I'm like-
ago.
And then I forgot it was on it, so you just mentioned it.
Oh, wow.
Alright.
Man, my stuff doesn't last that long. It gets moved around too much. Okay, cool. Thank y'all for being here. And yay. Okay, so have we decided pie or cake? And if it's cake, I'm doing a cupcake cake. And if it's pie, I will have multiple varieties of pie.
Cupcake was a prior Android version, wasn't it? The third
There was
version
never
of
a
Android.
pie.
No, I'm
Pie.
saying cupcake. That was C, wasn't it?
Yeah, see? That was the first official public release. Actually 1.4 and 1.5 were public, but 1.6 is the first time, which is cupcake, that it actually appeared on a device, aka the HTC G1. Still had mine,
So should you do cupcakes in honor of the first public release?
but I like pie a lot more.
It's easier to buy and
Yeah, but then we can personalize a cupcake cake. Like it's a cake made of cupcakes. And we all agree no royal icing, right? We like the whipped icing better? Yes, okay. Does anybody prefer royal icing to whipped icing? Maybe children.
I don't even know what that is.
So if you think about the stuff that essentially tastes like really stiff Cool Whip, that's like the whipped icing. If you think about the stuff that basically is sugar plus water and then they drenched it on top, and it gets all hard, that's royal icing. I don't really like icing, so I really hate royal icing. It's so sugary. I don't eat a lot of sugar, so if I have something like that, immediately I just rip the entire top off the cupcake. It's so sweet. Can't eat it. I think maybe that's just me. I'm really bad at sugar. Okay, cool, y'all.
Thank you.
No, you're good.
So,
Yes.
database.
Yes.
I should. It's good, like,
If you want it to be local data only, not online, then you use SQLite. If you want it to be online, the easiest thing is Firebase. Yep.
so, by the way, translation.
I know.
So much easier to working on it. The purpose is actually really is for you to learn, right? So I can create something small, right? Even though I don't get it.
Right, even though you may not have it fully fleshed out,
Right.
if you have like a working example that does at least 5 things, I can give you a prize. It has to do 5 things. It can't be like just 5 pictures. If you make it 5 pictures, I will give you no high five. 5 things, like it contains like 5 different things. So it either contains an image view, it uses an intents to fire like an email. It can use something like maps or web browser, checkbox, radio button. It just needs to use 5 different things, 5 different either view types or action types. So,
He was kind of thinking.
yeah, so as long as you do 5 things, bro, we're good.
Share preferences.
I can call you bro, because it's Zach Brown.
Files are.
But the problem is, I
Yes.
just wanted to.
What's up?
So, what are you gonna open for that Slack with this?
I am on there all the time, always in, no matter what. So, I may not get to it immediately, but I always, a lot of the people here can attest. I answer usually within 5 minutes, and if it's late at night, within 8 hours.
Well, you probably just, were you on during the class?
This is the first time I'll say
I mean, were you on,
Yeah.
during this class? Well, you saw some live responses. Stacy during, he was asking a bunch of questions. You didn't see the responses?
In the general.
Right.
Yeah, so you'll be able to see a whole bunch of stuff. We try to be really on top of the games. Get everything done.
So for Thursday, you want to just do the activity part and I'll do the, so Leroy, you want to kind of do the intro? You want me to do the center part? Then you can do when we actually display sensors to screen. Is that leaves the least preparation for you basically, so.
Definitely.
Cool.
So right now, I'm just like helping my intern write this thing. I'm in the middle of a redesign. My boss assigned me more work because I got ahead so that I could sleep without having to worry. And then he like doubled my work. Yeah, I know. I'm like going, I'm gonna be gone for 3 days. He's like, well, somebody else got sick, so we decided all of it. I'm like, really? The email would have been nice, so at least I would have been able to get it done partially over the weekend or something. I come back and I'm like, how is the person who was gone for 3 days end up with the most amount of work? How did I end up with 10 points? Didn't we only take 35 for the entire team? Everybody else got like 5. I'm like, yeah, but like you like did pre-work. I'm like, yeah, because it's gonna be gone for 3 days.
In anticipation of getting some relief.
Yeah, I'm like, man, we were smooth sailing. You had to like ruin it for me, man. Like, you do know that I've got my own intern, that I got a prep, and I'm teaching presentation skills and all kinds of stuff. I think it's really a case of like, I'm a perfectionist about certain things, so if it's something that has something that could be very confusing, or that other people find to be confusing,
It goes to you.
it usually goes to me. Because what ends up happening is, I don't mean this to be the case of it, but like, nobody wants to be the person that is like, guys, you wrote this really bad. We have to sit and talk to like business and figure out what the hell they're talking about. So, yeah, it's okay.
Fame is getting ready to end. You were on,